So we are recording. And by the way, there is a section at the very end of this presentation where we're going to have some interaction. And I want to end the stream when that happens. You'll figure it out when we get there. But if I forget to end the stream, please remind me. But yeah, so communication. It's a wonderful topic that I hold very closely to my heart, my non-existent black hole. But before we talk about communication, I just want to ask, how's everyone's first meetings? Are there any questions, problems, concerns, any get fires? No? Yeah?
Oh, I had one small one.
Yeah?
I managed to resolve it.
Okay, that's good.
Good.
All right. How about you?
It wouldn't let me forget, so I had to manually make my new repository and manually pull all the files over.
Oh my god, how does that happen?
I don't know.
Also found
It's
out
'cause
that
Louise made an
writing
update.
with Git makes it not allowed to change anything in it, so we had to close Unity to.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, Git, it's great, except for the times when it's not, and when it's not great, it's really bad.
Like everything.
Yeah, well, not everything, but it just hurts a lot. It's very painful. But yeah, so hopefully that's out of the way and we can start production as soon as possible, get the ball rolling, because we like that. And again, contact the project manager if we have any unresponsive members. I'll either give you their contact information or we'll replace them completely. I have a wait list. People are eager to hop on and I'll accommodate your meeting times. If there's a concerning team member, let us know. If you need any advice, let us know, etc., etc. So yeah, I'm just letting you guys know that this is our rough schedule for the rest of the quarter. We did front load the majority of our workshops to the beginning because we need these skills established right away. That's why we have a few office hours just for quick like tips and tricks, Heelys. Yeah. We front loaded everything basically, and it's gonna be pretty quick workshops from here on out. So look forward to those.
So we
Now.
can use the office hours just to see if you do feel like you want to come by. We can talk about like overall how you want to tell your teams and how it's been going. Kind of like checkups.
Yeah,
essentially.
checkups.
And if you want to stop by, we'll be here for
Or we can just chill, you know? Talk about boys. Haha. But yeah, so.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. All right, now Henry.
Exactly. All right. So, why do we need communication and such? Any buyers? Anyone want to speak up for that first? Also, hello viewers.
Because if you don't talk to anyone, then it's impossible to tell them to do stuff.
Yes, that is important. It's like not knowing things like how do you get to tell them what to do and such, and what they need to do. Anyone else?
Because communication helps keep your members up to date with what goes on, so you keep them in line, at least in terms of the current state of the project.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to meet?
Yeah, honestly,
There you go.
100%. If you had all online meetings, you know how hectic that'd be.
Really
But you
bad.
have to communicate.
Exactly. See, how do you even start those?
Literally nothing.
Exactly. So it's all these things to like prevent disasters, you know, get merge conflicts and stuff like that, letting you know how that happens. Or like some people to work unknowingly work on the same task. There's people who've worked on I've had an experience where people work on the same scene, and then because of that, it like edited like stuff on Unity, and it literally deleted the work that all the work I did on the scene, so I had to redo it all on a separate one. That was like a day, 2 days wasted. It's not smart. Work on your own scenes and be, you know.
Let people know when you're
Yeah.
touching things.
I mean, let people know what you're touching when you're doing GitHub and such. Yeah. It clears up uncertainty. Clears up uncertainty with certain things, like, you know, when you have certain questions and stuff like that, having that clear sense of communication and being an open line, it really helps with clarifying the mechanics that you want to discuss about with your programmers. Because, you know, if they don't know how to set up a mini game from the Pokemon Diamond and Pearl stuff, really clarify what that is, how to and break that down for them. Making sure time's not being wasted. I said before, don't make those disasters, don't waste time by having those clear open modes to talk about those things and such. And establishing establish and maintain respect for the game project. Everyone is trying to make this a piece to work on, to learn more about game dev, possibly make it a portfolio piece for some people. You really want to be serious about it, be focused, and having everyone on task and on the page is nice and fun. And
Look at Sam.
that's our
Sam's the producer.
I thought we talked about not kind of but yeah, producer communication at work is
Why is the producer the only one with pants?
because
we were the
He wears the pants.
He wears-
the big pants.
Why is the designer and the producer the only ones not holding anything? Well, actually, the audio track person also isn't holding anything.
technically we're holding.
Why is the designer the only one who doesn't have an accoutrement?
Everything's in this camera.
Yeah, holding.
Have them hold cards.
Yeah, you have like a card one day.
You can blame
Yeah.
Irvi for designing this
In
image.
like 2
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah.
It looks good though. I think it's a good representation. Oh my goodness. But yeah, you can see as the producer, you're talking to the programmers, talking to the team lead of the programmers to make sure with how they're doing. You're talking with Audio Strike, you're talking with Art Strike, you're talking with designers. Then you have to keep up with Kiara and how all her great demands,
Yeah.
big mob boss demands. So you have a lot of things you gotta be open with and like communication wise. So having that all like kind of many different channels of communication for all the departments. You really got to make sure how to do that all clearly and properly. Audio Strike and Art Strike. Make sure you guys got your art forms and audio form strike forms filled out early at a time, as soon as possible, essentially. Because if you have that, you'll be able to communicate them later on in the week if they have any questions or you have any questions of how that is going and stuff. And as sooner it's filled out, the better they'll know it's happening and such. You don't want to give them week 9 and be like, make all this. That's not fun. It's like what happens I told you had like a project and do it the last week. It's stressful. Objective, make sure all these channels are working together in harmony. Keep it organized, keep it clean. Make sure you are keeping check with them and such. Yeah. And how do we do that for communication? Is having those strong communication skills. Strong communication. Sorry for people on the Twitch inside. This kind of means keeping communication of project status and needs clear and focused. And how we're gonna do that and how to do that and such is gonna be through Irvi as we switch to the floor.
So, how do you establish effective communication regarding your? Oh, was that yours?
Yeah. Oh, my bad. Sorry. It's also for communicating, emphasize importance. Make sure everyone remembers and respects the meetings. Having those, in-person meetings is so helpful with being able to show people kind of what's happening and kind of to give them like visual aids on what's going on. Remind everyone to communicate when to push to git, not got, to prevent fires and such. Because letting everyone know what files they're touching, so if they don't touch it, so Unity doesn't scream at you or GitHub doesn't scream at you. And then absences must be communicated no matter what. Let them know ahead of time. Like I know that whenever you're having a meeting, try to do it the day before, saying hey, or the week before, even the best of time. Like during that, then like saying hey, next meeting I'm not going to be here. I'm going to be busy with something else. I'm just letting you know now. But just try to get it as soon as possible. Sometimes if you can't get it in, don't feel guilty that you're like last day, but just tell them, at least let them know that you're not going to be there because you can plan accordingly and stuff.
And so this picture sort of shows you as a producer sort of over communicating. So like you want to like for every single thing, every single event regarding the team, you want to be the one who's reminding everyone about like all these different meetings regarding different departments or like different events of what's going on. You want to constantly be making sure that everyone knows this because there's always going to be someone who doesn't, and so it's important that you continuously establish that. What's up?
So if everyone went to the meeting last week, do you still have to send the announcement that the meeting's the same time in the same place this week?
No, more so like if people are canceled, like, right?
For my point of view is always keep the meeting in the back of their minds.
Yeah.
I feel like if there is always a chance that someone forgets, maybe like they they're busy with a lot of things and it slips their mind. You want them to like hold the meeting in a certain high regard. Just constantly reminding them will help them to establish, yeah, this is something important, and yeah, I should go. If you don't like express to them, hey, there's a meeting, hey, there's a meeting, hey, there's a meeting,
Yeah.
then they'll think, oh, it's not that important. You know, I feel like this is just helping reaffirm me that yes, I'm expecting you to come. Yes, please come. Yes, I love you. Please come.
Yeah, and it's just good to be consistent overall. And by doing this, you're establishing a cycle. That way, they will know what to expect if you continuously do this. Because if you remind them constantly, then they'll constantly remember to, oh yeah, there's a meeting, you know,
There's no
or like,
such
oh,
thing
there's
as
something more.
over-communication,
Yeah,
basically.
there isn't. So that leads us in.
Wait, Henry has something to say.
Best thing I would say, try to do a notification the day before, and then literally the morning of. So that way it's like, okay, it's happening, like you're making sure, and then the next one you have at least 2 notifications. But
Whatever
yeah.
you're most comfortable with.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that being said, as a producer, you're in charge of all the sorts of different communication channels throughout the project, and one of those channels regards the status of the project overall. So what this means that as a producer, you want to be weekly project updates regarding the current state of the game is an absolute must. You want to establish right away what had been accomplished that week and as well as what needs to be worked on to keep the project going on. So the very first steps as to communicating the project status effectively is, like I said, is to first sort of summarize what had been completed the week beforehand. So basically, you'll have everyone in your team talk about what they had worked on and what they had completed. That way, everyone knows what tasks they can cross off from the game design document, and thus not have to worry about that anymore. The second thing would be to establish the sort of current issues that are within the project. You know, maybe there's like this sort of game-breaking bug that has arisen, and so like this is something that needs to be brought up within the week, or like whenever you guys meet up. And it's good to sort these sort of issues that arise for that week from highest priority to like lowest. So for example, right here, here are 2 examples of like 2 sorts of project like status updates. So when you're writing out the sort of update of your project, it's good to be very it's good to have a good level of detail regarding that particular issue. So for example, when I said like, oh, for an issue this week, there's sort of 1 game-breaking bug, probably like 3 major ones that need to be addressed. It's good to go into the specifics as how it impacts your game. So for example, with the one I just said, it's important to emphasize that it has to be fixed by the next playtest, because otherwise you guys won't be able to progress any further. You guys wouldn't be able to get any feedback from your game. So because doing so establishes the sort of urgency and the priority of this issue. That way people aren't just sort of picking and choosing, like, or choosing to fix the things that have like sort of lower priority. For example, might be like the team is still waiting for art strike acids, and so you don't really have all your art and stuff like that. So yeah, it's good to, you need to establish these sort of issues within your meetings, and then finally, lastly, you should establish the sort of next issue, or like the next steps of how you're going to resolve these current issues. So this involves delegating the tasks as to who's going to handle these problems, who's going to handle what's the next thing to do, and making sure that everyone is on board and they understand what's their next task. And what I mean by this is you want to make sure that people aren't uncertain as to what they are doing, because if they're sort of confused, then there's all sorts of negative effects, in which I will get onto about later. And communicating project status, it's very significant because it shows the sort of progress you guys as a team are sort of going through, like as you progress like throughout the weeks, and it helps sort of establish a sort of clarity or holistic view of the project, and so people will feel more confident, they feel more involved, that they understand what's going on with the game, and so thus they'll be more likely to contribute. Hey. So the next thing, the next communication channel you want to make sure is very solid and completely fluid is communicating project needs. Now, project needs are different from the project status in the means that how the project status is sort of broken down into these individual project deliverable tasks or needs. So it's essentially the tasks that you do assign to individual people, and these project needs, they will always have a particular due date or a delivery date attached to each one of them. So for example, if you give someone the task to create a movement script, then you need to follow that up by saying, okay, like you would like for this player movement script to be delivered by like Friday of this week. And so when you do this, you want to make sure you establish a good cycle of continuously checking up on them. So for example, as after the meeting in which, like, let's say you have the meeting on Monday and then you assign that task, maybe it's a good idea every other day to check up on them and see how they're doing with that. You can just message them on Discord just saying, hey, I'm just checking on this task that was assigned to you. I wanted to know, are we still like on track with that? Are we still good? Are you experiencing any problems? And then they can continuously tell you about like how they're doing with it, if they're experiencing any problems. And it might seem a little bit of overkill, but like it's not. It's more of just being preemptive and making sure that you're catching these problems that they might have as soon as possible. Because if you don't do this, then by next week, and then you're asking for an update with their regarding tasks, and they tell you like they couldn't work on it because they were having difficulties with some other things, then that's essentially a whole week that was just sort of wasted because you were just expecting that they would be able to do it by the end of this week, but there were some problems. And so by doing this, it allows you to catch it as soon as it becomes a problem, and so you can deal with it as soon as possible. Now, so we went over the project status, the individual needs of the project. Now we want to talk about particularly with communicating with your team members in general. Like we said, your respect and your trust as a producer is not something that's just granted to you with the role. It's something you have to earn, and in order to earn that, you have to establish yourself as someone who's dependable, someone in which the team can rely on. And so in order to do that, you want to make sure that you are trying to show them that you are doing the best for them. You're trying to make it so that they are having the best time that they can possible for this project. So, you know, like with this club, we want to make sure that everyone's happy, that they're doing the project, that they're happy learning the things that that people are happy doing what they are doing. So it is your job as a producer to make sure that this is happening, because if you don't, sort of negligence of this sort of aspect can result in sort of maybe underlying tension or conflict that they might be feeling about the project. They might feel sort of limited in their sort of capacity as to what they can do within this project, and to even some extremes, it might even cause them to be sort of detached from the project, and thus would lead them to very extremely to ghost it entirely, and just feel like they did not have a good experience overall with the project, and thus would cause them not to come back. So neglecting this sort of aspect of it is very significant, and so thus you should try to make an active effort to make sure you pay attention to each of your members. And ways you can do this is going up to them individually, you know, asking them how they feel about the project so far, asking them if there's anything that the project could be doing better. Just sort of how can we, our job is to ask them, how can we make our experience or your experience better on this project? And it is up to us to be able to deliver that so that they can have that best experience possible. And it's also just nice to remind each of your members that, like, you know, every time that they commit a task or like throughout the quarter, that you are supporting them, you're giving them, you're praising them, saying that their work is significant and that you appreciate them, because that can really go a long way in keeping their motivation up for the project. So that was not supposed to be showing, but anyways, so overall, for team meetings, your checklist as to what you should be doing is to go over the accomplishments for that week. Then your second would be to update the team on sort of top issues, or make sure that any issues that any of the other members are experiencing are able to voice that, so that way the rest of the team may know. And then you need to determine what needs to get done for that week, and then assign those tasks accordingly. And then finally, you should check on the team morale, see how they're doing, and then just overall just try to make sure that, you know, they have a good time. So with that in mind, that discussion of how to communicate with your teammates, it leads us to the discussion of how do you communicate with those who are being sort of uncooperative.
Gentle persuasion.
We will get to that. But the very important note regarding this is to not come off as being very aggressive up front, because you know, you might be having a teammate who says that they could be working on they'll be working on a task, but they haven't been able to do so for like maybe a week or two, and so you don't want to come off as like sort of pressuring them or cornering them. So you want to avoid like confrontational statements like, you know, why haven't you been doing this? Like, this is a task that's been expected from you, but instead you want to be more open and more considerate by saying like, you know, hey, I've noticed that you haven't been able to keep up with these sort of tasks. Is there anything that's going wrong, or is there anything I can do to help you with this so that we can overcome this? Because you are trying to work along with your teammates. You're not their dictator. You're not their boss. You're their teammate. You know, and so you want to foster their success as much as your own or any other teammate. And so,
Biggest support role.
you are.
Yeah.
As a producer, you are the biggest support role. So be attentive to them. When you ask them, is there anything wrong, then you try to be attentive to what they're saying and try to understand where they're coming from, and then decide how you're going to deal with that accordingly. Because it could honestly just be as simple as splitting up the task with like another member who'd be willing to do that, or to just give them more time overall with that. Though if it does become something that's like continues to persist, you know, you're starting to feel like maybe they are taking sort of advantage of your kindness, then that is a point in which you should reach out to us and let us know. That way we can do a little bit of gentle persuasion for you guys. Yeah. Okay, so this is Kira's turn now.
Okay, so I'm gonna be talking about being a little meaner, I guess. A more serious tone can really help to put things into perspective and spark life into your team. Good behavior deserves good things. Bad behavior deserves gentle persuasion. Quantitative data is more persuasive than qualitative. And what I mean by this is, say it's week 8 or it's week 9, right? And we don't have as much progress as we want. In this scenario, I put a daily status update where I went through, by the way, this was a visual novel. And I put, okay, what is the progress on our visual novel? Every single week I updated our progress. And it started off as like 50%, and it was like week 7 or something. So I showed them, yeah, guys, this route is this much complete. We only have 2 faces of Yukiko, 1 face for Melody, etc., etc. This is our art assets progress. This is our script progress. Let's keep it up. And then as the weeks went by, I updated the statistics, and you got to see how the progress changed with each meeting. Showing them how we're only halfway done, even though we're more than halfway through the quarter, kind of motivates them to think, heck, we're behind. We need to start getting work done, you know? So showing them quantitatively how they're doing will put into perspective just how much work needs to be put in, right? So putting something along these lines could help spark some motivation into them. It kind of indirectly pressures them a little bit, just enough, you know, just enough to make them realize, yeah, let's get started, let's do this, let's aim for 100%, right? And it could be a good idea if it's like maybe starting now or maybe towards the end of the quarter, whatever you feel is good. But yeah, quantitative is more objective and decisive than qualitative. If I say, hey, Irby, you suck, you know, he's not going to do anything. But if I say, hey, Irby, you've only done 10% of your work, then I'll think, oh, shoot, you're right. The facts are right there. I really do suck. He doesn't. He's a pretty cool guy. No, I don't. Irby's great.
Accused by our director.
Yeah, I'm mean to my officers. It's true. But they still love me, right?
Sure.
But yeah.
Well, then.
But yeah, so I have a few situations where things took a turn for the worse, I guess. Local production director is a bully, sad face. So the first message is someone I gave to a team lead, where towards the end of the quarter they just could not get the motivation to pick back up. And so I told them, hey, you know, if everyone's out of steam, it's up to them to pick it back up. All you can do is give them a push. So this was my idea of giving them a push. I was just all like, here guys, give me an ultimatum. Should we work on this or should we not? So when they're faced with a yes or no question, then they'll think, do I really want to give up on my hard work, you know? And like if they say yes, then, huh?
Pure-hearted maiden.
Oh yeah, because I'm a pure-hearted maiden. But anyways, so if they select yes, then that means they're going to have motivation for the rest of the quarter, and it's great. And if they choose no, then yeah, it'll suck. But at the very least, yes, it's light theme, and light theme is amazing, okay?
I didn't know light theme existed.
Heck you! It's the best. But anyways, if they choose no, then yeah, it'll suck. The project won't succeed. It won't be finished. But at the very least, no one's time will be wasted for the rest of the quarter. You know, just sitting around thinking, hey, are we gonna get this done? Hey, are we still a thing? You have an answer to that question, and it's either yes or no. So, yeah, putting an ultimatum, it puts pressure on them to either, to just make a decision, basically. And then in the second scenario over here, it's kind of the same thing. During my first project, I had kind of part-time members, where people were part of multiple teams, and because I did that, it is now banned from the club. So it's no longer a thing, but it happened during the time. And basically, I was told that part-time members were not doing any work during team meetings, right? So I was all like, yeah, you guys have been working super diligently, but at the same time, I've heard that people have not been putting any work. So please know that when you attend meetings, you are expected to work. We only have 3 weeks left. Please let me know if there's anything I can help you. But we need to establish a sense of urgency, et cetera, et cetera. So just, it's difficult being the bad guy, but at the same time, you want to make the most of your time. And if you're not making the most of your time, you don't want to waste your time, basically. And the next scenario, this was a very heartbreaking situation because we had a team where the team lead was trying to push their members, but they would not listen to their team lead. So the team lead came to me and they're like, hey, I just don't know what to do. And I'm like, okay, guys, so only one person has been putting in any effort. Literally only one person has been pushing to the, oh no, it's your, oh, your name is on it. Sorry. Oh, I should have blurred it. Sorry. Sorry.
That's fine, I don't care.
I'm sorry. That was really bad of me. Okay, anyways, yeah, so only one person has been pushed, and if no one else pushes, then you haven't been contributing to the project. And if you don't contribute to the project, you won't be in the credits, it won't be on your portfolio. So please talk back, do something, you know. Just, I was very upset. I can be a really mean producer, evidently. And sometimes it's necessary. because this is a team effort. It's not a one person. It's not a one person do most of the effort or one person do all the effort. Everyone needs to contribute, no matter how much, at least put something in. And you need to put your foot down if the situation calls for it. And if it's hard for you, then it's fine. Ask me, I'll do it. All right, so definitely communicate with your team members, establish a sense of urgency. A sense of urgency is the deciding factor of whether or not you're going to finish your project, right? So, time for the fun time. We had our lecture.